Well, folks, I'm here kind of with an exit interview with Mason County Economic Development Council Executive Director Kevin Shutty through the end of the month. He is headed off to different positions, and we'll learn more about that as those announcements are made. But you have been the executive director here for a little while, and seems like there's been a lot of positive growth in the office since your time here. Let's go back to when you first took the position from when you were a county commissioner to now.
Yeah, so it's been just about 2.5 years, or just coming up on 2.5 years, and it's been a really exciting time, I think, for Mason County. There's been a lot of really, I think, exciting investments being made in the community, and certainly the EDC has tried to put itself in that position to help facilitate and support those types of things. I mean, even to this spring learning that we were top 10 in the nation for communities of our size in terms of growth.
Yeah.
And so that's something that I think we should be really proud of, to see, just sort of the role the EDC has played in some of those initiatives. And the big thing for me is the arrow continues to point up for Mason County, and it's a place that people want to not just live and work, but invest.
Talk to me a little bit about what you knew the Economic Development Council, where you thought you knew its kind of mission was when you first came in, and how that's evolved here as you start to kind of sunset.
Yeah. One of the conversation starters that we have a lot of conversation around in the economic development world is kind of a finish this thought for me, and it's economic development is. And it's this really kind of interesting open-ended question that gets people thinking, and really kind of trying to figure out what their definition of economic development is. And so we have really tried over the past 2.5 years to be an all of the above organization in terms of the work that we do here. Foundational to that is supporting our existing local small businesses. And so Karin Leaf, who's assuming the interim executive director role here as I transition out, has served for a number of years as our business development manager. And so she's really the tip of the spear when it comes to supporting our existing businesses and trying to create opportunities for them to grow as much as they want to. And so that continues to be foundational to the work that we do. But economic development is also a lot about storytelling. And, and that's really where, Tiana comes in, and the work that she does to highlight the good things that are happening in our community. And it doesn't necessarily have to be what people think of traditional economic development being, we're turning dirt and we're building a new building or a new business. There's a lot of things that are happening, like in the workforce development space. And so being able to work with partners like you and Shelton School District, to be able to, create career pathways and opportunities for young people in our community. That's economic development. We've been able to partner with North Mason Regional Fire Authority to help support the Mason County Linkages to Care Transportation Project, which is helping folks that are, in trying to get into recovery services and, different programs like that, to help get them to the appointments they need to be successful in that journey. And why is that economic development? Well, we want to make sure that we have a healthy community first and foremost, that it's a place where people are supported and have, the opportunities to, get back into the workforce. And so when we get people stabilized who are, coming through programs like that, it's about being that sort of, open hand to help them, through that journey. And maybe today it's connecting somebody to, a detox service or a primary care, healthcare appointment as they get stabilized. But tomorrow, maybe it's getting into a work source program, being able to get into a job training program, and, from there it's housing and so on and so forth. So thankfully we have a really engaged and aligned board that has been able to give us the space and the resources at the EDC to be able to engage in things that are traditional economic development projects, but also these non-traditional economic development projects that are just good for the community.
Talk a little bit about how your counterparts across the state and even within the state in Olympia look at this kind of shifting definition of economic development, and what you've learned from other folks, even on the other side of the mountains, where things are done a little differently than here on the lands on the west side versus the east side, and things like that. How are you explaining that to kind of maybe the traditionalists versus some of the new forward thinkers in the county or in the state?
A couple things that come to mind with that is, the funding landscape has fundamentally changed for organizations like ours across the state. And so, we've had a lot of funding over the years from the state of Washington to do the traditional business retention and expansion work, essentially on behalf of the state and our local communities. With the state's budget challenges, we've all sort of had to come together and figure out, just how do we keep our organizations, in some cases, how do they keep the doors open, with some of those cuts, but in other cases, and I think we're more in this camp, is, okay, we've run into some challenges. So, how do we pivot? How do we make sure that, we're working in a way that, is sustainable for our organization and community? And so that has triggered a lot of conversations with my counterparts across the state to just, kind of walk the walk on the messaging that we have, which is to our business community, you have to be entrepreneurial in order to, make it in today's economy. We have to be entrepreneurial too. And that's why we've looked at developing these other partnerships, like with North Mason Fire. Mason Matters is another example of a, partnership that has been both financially and programmatically important for the Economic Development Council. And so being able to take more of a, broad view of, economic and community development really, I think is going to be the thing that differentiates successful organizations from, those who are, just kind of struggling to get by. And so, we rely on really strong partnerships in order to do the work that we do, whether, like I said, with the school districts here or regional partners like Thurston EDC or our economic development district, the Evergreen Coast Regional Partnership, which is this 5-county, federal economic development district. We're always collaborating and always sharing ideas and trying to improve, service delivery for our communities.
Explain a little bit about the benefits of being a regional partner. For some folks, they may say, well, we need all of our eggs in our Mason County basket. But talking with you and other folks in the region, over the years, it is a very collaborative approach, it seems like. How does that in the end game benefit Mason County specifically?
I think in a couple of ways. One, just sort of our broad blanket statement about that is the era of go it alone is over.
Okay.
So there is not enough to go around for us to be that much of an isolationist organization or community. And so people who are, coming into Mason County, leaving Mason County, they're not thinking about those jurisdictional boundaries, maybe like, some people in government are, right? And so people just want to go shop and spend their money where it's affordable and where they can get the things that they're looking for. And so, that's kind of the, the reality that we're in right now is people aren't thinking about like, I crossed this line or this jurisdictional boundary. People are looking for the goods and services that they want and need in their life. And so we don't have the ability to do everything here by ourselves. We're stronger when we're working together with people in the region, whether that's Thurston or Grays Harbor or Kitsap County, to really kind of try to, tackle those issues that are prevalent in our economy, whether it's, trying to, collaborate for infrastructure investment, partner on projects, just kind of find opportunities to create, economic activity. We learn a lot from the things that are happening in other communities across the state. We learn a lot from working closely with other similar organizations in our community. So we work really well with the North Mason Chamber of Commerce, the Shelton Mason Chamber of Commerce. I meet regularly with both Deidre and Carrie. And we're talking about how we can best support each other's membership and the businesses in our community. And so I don't think that there's any room in the current funding environment the current planning environment, where we're going to be better off by going it alone.
When it comes to planning and growth, there will be a new person on the Mason County Commission board. The primary election has ended. The general election is starting to ramp up here, and there will be a new person because they'll be filling the seat of current Commissioner Trask. What would you say to them and the whole county commission on unleashing Mason County, making it more an easier community to find the partners that come in? Because while business retention and business development on a small business scale is very important, as we talked about, people want to see the big splash. They want to see a large business or a large collection of businesses come to the county. There's large stretches of road where there's no sort of business. How do we get to the point where it makes it even more attractive for those businesses to come here?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I think that's the one, that they're going to really have to figure out the answer to. The county has a really important role to play in those types of conversations. I know that from my experience as a county commissioner, and I know it from my experience leading this organization. I think the challenge that the county has to figure out is how will this new commission, when it's seated in January, how will they engage with their other municipal partners here to collaborate on infrastructure investment? So if you zoom out and you think about the Shelton urban growth area, it encompasses not just the city of Shelton, but also the unincorporated part of it, which is Mason County. But it also has utility providers in there like PUD3. It has incredible economic development potential with the Port of Shelton. So how do those jurisdictions come together to put their sort of differences aside in terms of priorities and resources and really figure out how they invest collaboratively in infrastructure? I know our legislative delegation, Drew, Dan, and Travis, have been very supportive of trying to find money in Olympia to do projects like that. A great example of a project that would lead to, I think, pretty quick economic returns is completing the sewer extension on Shelton Springs Road. That's been something that has been a priority from a public health perspective for a number of years, and both the city of Shelton and Mason County Public Health have worked together to get funding to do some design work. Port of Shelton has been involved in that. And so you look at what that could open up, not only from an environmental and public health perspective, but being able to have more sewer connectivity through that corridor is critical for housing and eventually development at the Port of Shelton as well. You look at the potential for development on the 101 corridor, between the Port of Shelton and Mason County Public Works. Squaxin Island Tribe has a project that they're working on in that area. There's also a number of other private entities that are, have ownership in that area that could, complement the work that the Port of Shelton is doing. But the real question for the new commission is going to be, how do they get out of their own way to really unleash these types of investments to make the kind of progress that we need? We have a lot of developable land, which is great. But the key component to any development there, in addition to a really good recruitment strategy, is an infrastructure investment strategy. And I think the county has a role and a responsibility to be a convener and an investor in that.
And does that come at if you build it, they will come sort of a situation where you're going to put a flyer out on finishing it out from the Port of Shelton out 101, maybe up to a certain mile marker, and say, okay, we don't have all the money in the world, but we're going to make this strategic investment on this stretch of roadway, put in what we need, understanding that folks are looking to invest here. It's going to cost us a little bit up front, but every year we don't make these investments, the cost to construct goes up and up and up, and more people are moving or choosing not to come and go out and to different places.
So when infrastructure serves the public good, that's when municipal government should be making those investments. So when we're talking about extending sewer, we're talking about a trunk line that will serve a broad area. It's not specific to any project or specific to any site. And so, you would still have the ability to work with developers and, private businesses to, connect into those. And there's different rate structures and costs that are associated with that would be borne by the private investor. But generally speaking, we can't get to those conversations without that backbone level of infrastructure. So it's not so much a build it and they will come proposition as much as it is, if you don't build it, they ain't coming anyway.
Right.
So I think there has to be some conversation around that. The county has, at its disposal, rural sales tax funds that are specific to infrastructure investment. We have been working with our other partners to try to get that money unlocked. The county has made some progress on that, but a good example of an investment that the county made recently was to help support site readiness at Johns Prairie Industrial Park. So that is, a partnership with the Port of Shelton, who is going to bear half of the cost of that internally, and the county is coming in for another half of that. And that's all centralized around another recruitment that we were helping with for a manufacturer that is interested in locating here and moving their company from British Columbia to Mason County. And so they do a lot of work in the shellfish industry and the ag industry, and they view Mason County, as a prime place for them to not just expand their business, but to literally relocate, an international recruitment opportunity that the Port of Shelton and we have been working on. And so, so it's not a proposition where the county has to do all of it, but they have to meet their partners halfway, and see that they'll get the economic benefit of having that activity here as well. And so. I think it's just the county has to think about the role that it wants to play in those types of endeavors.
Does Mason County industry, the future look of industry, does it have to be earmarked or not earmarked, but does it have to kind of just be solely a rural endeavor? Are there opportunities to tell the Mason County story to the tech industries? Data centers are in the news a lot. I saw a report come out of the Grant County area where by the implementation of some of these big data centers, the property tax to the rest of the city went down significantly. So to alleviate some of the pain for those folks that live there, I mean, how do you tell a story to someone who's used to the hustle and bustle of an urban lifestyle, Silicon Valley lifestyle, that they can have the same benefits here with what we have to offer?
So I think the priority for us is living wage jobs. So we're looking for projects and we're looking for expansion opportunities that prioritize that first and foremost. I think when we start to zoom out, though, what we learned during the pandemic was that people from more urban areas, in particular Seattle, came here in large numbers and fell in love with the community. And so it's, we're close enough to the I-5 corridor that people like that can have their cake and eat it too. They can live in a community that provides world-class recreation opportunities, but still have access to some of the amenities that they're more accustomed to on the I-5 corridor. And so I think that's the idea for us, is to really be thinking about Mason County as a community that can support both our traditional natural resource-based economy, so our timber and shellfish, which are world-class, as well as have an eye to the future about what other opportunities exist here, whether that's being more encouraging of folks maybe in the tech industry that maybe want to work remotely, or a startup here. Those things are great, and I think that's the kind of things that we need to be thinking about. We also have a pretty robust manufacturing economy here. So the Port of Shelton, again, is a great spot for a lot of those manufacturers. TrueFab is a company in particular that is growing and does a lot of defense-related contracting work and work for Boeing and things like that. So we have a really, I think, good blend of industries here. Healthcare is another one. Mason Health is a great employer here that we have an eye to the future with in terms of growing healthcare needs into the future and being able to have that level of service conversation and recruit providers and things like that. And so we also, the other thing that we see is on the horizon is an emerging defense industry here. So certainly, I mentioned the activity at the Port of Shelton. We have a couple of defense-related operations there, contractors there, but also in Belfair in the north end with the billions of dollars of investment that are going to happen at the Naval Shipyard in Bremerton. There's a clear benefit to our community with those types of investment. It's hard not to, it would be really hard to miss the opportunity of a $10+ billion investment 5 miles up the road.
Right.
And so we've been really thoughtful about how we position Mason County and Belfair in particular to capture the benefits of those. And so as the Navy goes through their contracting process, as they start to get to work there, it's going to push some of their operations off of base. And it's also, hopefully an opportunity to look at, people that do work for the Navy, to locate their businesses in Mason County. So I think we have to have a broad perspective of what's possible here, and investments in things like fiber and high-speed internet continue to be really important. PUD3, Hood Canal Communications are both making a lot of investments in that. So those are the things that become the great equalizer for us in other communities.
How does the EDC and the board, along with Karn as the interim executive director, but the next director here, explain to the citizens of the county and the county government that Mason County can do this? They have the ability, a good, strong workforce, a good kind of ethos within the county, how people work and work together, that we shouldn't just be okay with being, over the years it's been said that it's a bedroom community. People head to Bremerton, head to Olympia. They leave every day and then they come and stay here. But how do you say, no, we can be bigger. We can keep our rural lifestyle, our friendly, neighborly communities, but we can do this. We have the ability to be, a big player when it comes to our state economy.
Yeah. I think the key to that, and our board recognizes this, certainly Karn and our team here recognizes this, good enough isn't good enough for Mason County. We have, I think, a really long history of innovation here. If you look at even back to kind of our early days as a community, just the timber that kind of built the country, and world-class shellfish that are kind of foundational. And so we have that in our DNA here, but no one organization is going to be able to totally unlock that. And so all the organizations that we partner with here in Mason County should be asking themselves a version of that question. What is their contribution to ensuring that Mason County doesn't lose its connection to its history, that we continue to harvest timber and support that industry, that we continue to grow and harvest shellfish and support that industry. But how do we also embrace growth as not a bad thing? How do we, and I think, Travis Couture does a good job of talking about, growth in terms of you're either going to plan for it or it's going to happen to you. And so as a convener and a facilitator at the EDC, our board and staff wants to help guide that conversation and be a part of it. But we need everybody at the table to kind of figure out what their role and their contribution is going to be to ensuring that we're planning for it and that we're ready for that kind of growth, because it's happening. City of Shelton is looking at in various stages of the permitting process, about 1,500 new housing units. Go up North Cliff and we have a 42-unit multifamily project being built. We need more of those things, and we need more of that kind of development, even downtown. And so that's something that all of the community needs to come together and understand that growth will happen, and it's a matter of how we choose to navigate it as a community.
How's your ice cream?
Man, I'll tell you what. So I already think Olympic Mountain ice cream is the best ice cream.
Sure.
But it was so fun to go visit Trail and his family and the team up at Olympic Mountain Ice Cream to make our very own EDC blend. It is out of this world. It is so good. And it's, this is the tough part, because it is truly like a limited supply, limited edition thing.
Batch.
And so the folks coming to our event on August 20th are going to get one to take home with them. I hope it becomes a thing. I hope maybe we can get such rave reviews that the EDC ice cream is a staple.
And why not?
Right.
Why not you? Why not Mason County?
Exactly.
I love it. The fact that you got to do that. They have been in the works for a while now to move onto port property, kind of expand what they've been doing there. And that's, I think, through a lot of hard work that you at the EDC has been able to talk with them from their original building and stands and farm where they make that ice cream. It really is a regional success, and now having a better spot, a larger spot, I should say, on the port property where we've seen much growth with the different enhancements when it comes to the world-class skydiving opportunities that we have here, the world-class shellfish opportunities. And I think a lot of folks, they think about an economic development council and they want to see the ribbon cuttings of the Home Depots and the Costcos. And we've talked about that before, and how at this point it's not sustainable for those corporations to make those investments here. With more growth and more opportunity, potentially that is a thing. But to develop small businesses to go from 4 employees to 8 employees, that's 100% growth, and those are regional paying jobs. I was thinking about kind of an example. It may work, it may not, but like a large company coming in is a big boulder in a lake making big ripples that eventually go out. But when you make the strategic investments and they're kind of pebbles in that same area, all the ripples of that build off each other, and it kind of makes everything grow a little bit more when it comes to the growth of the community. So wherever you're off next, they're lucky to have you.
Thank you.
I'm sure you'll still be around to see the growth and potential of Mason County, but it's been a great 2.5 years, kind of capped off with some of those big grant investments from the USDA and from the feds, recognizing the hard work that the EDC does here. So Karin will do a great job as interim. Your board continues to have great success and great membership there. So yeah, cool, man. It was really nice to talk with you about kind of wrapping this thing up and seeing where it's gone in the last couple of years.
Yeah, absolutely. And you nailed it. Karin is going to do a great job leading in the interim. Our board is a great mix of public and private sector leaders in the community. They're energized and aligned for the work that's happening right now, and I think they're going to have a really good opportunity to hire a new executive director that is going to continue to take the EDC and the community to that next level.
Outgoing Mason County Economic Development Council Executive Director Kevin Shutty. Thank you.
Thanks, Jeff.